Hello everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to prepare chilorio, which is a dish that originated in the state of Sinaloa. It's prepared with pork that is slowly cooked to perfection and then it's fried in a delicious red sauce. This recipe can take up to 2 hours to prepare, so let's get started. But first, let's go over the ingredients we need to prepare this delicious recipe. Using a mortar or a molcajete, grind the peppercorns, cloves, and cumin until it has a powdery-like consistency. And set aside until it's ready to use. For the meat, I'm going to use 5 pounds of pork butt. You can also use pork shoulder. I cut the meat into about 1 to 2 inch pieces. I left the fat on the meat so it can add more flavor to the dish. Transfer it to a heavy bottom stock pot or a pan. To begin to cook the meat, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of salt, 2 cups of water, and half an onion cut in half. We're only going to use 2 cups of water because once the meat begins to cook, it's going to release a lot of its juices. We're going to turn on the burner to medium-high. We're going to cover it and we're going to come back and check on it every 10 minutes to move the meat around. Meanwhile, we're going to prepare the peppers for the sauce. For this recipe, I'm going to use 5 chile pasillas. But you can also use a combination of chile pasilla and chile ancho. Start by removing the stem, then using a pair of kitchen scissors, cut it open to remove the seeds. All these peppers I rinsed before cutting them, so when you're making yours, make sure to rinse your peppers before you begin to remove the stems and the seeds. Using your kitchen scissors, cut it into smaller pieces into a pan. This is not only going to help it to hydrate a lot faster, but it's also going to make it easier to move around when roasting. I'm also going to add 5 chile puya. Chile puya is very similar to chile guajillo, except they're a lot smaller and are a bit more spicy than chile guajillo. We're going to repeat the same process with the chile puya and cut it open to remove the seeds. We like ours a little bit extra spicy, so I'm also going to throw in a handful of chiles de árbol. These peppers are very spicy, so if you don't want yours spicy, you can leave them out completely, or you can add more or less depending on your level of spice. And I also threw in the other half of the onion and 4 very large garlic cloves. We're going to place it on the burner on medium heat, and we're going to toast all these ingredients for about 3 minutes with frequent movement. And to help the onion toast evenly with the rest of the ingredients, I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces. Continue moving them around, being very careful that your peppers don't burn. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bitter sauce. Once they begin to release that delicious aroma, add 2 cups of chicken broth, beef broth, or water. Bring to a simmer, turn off the burner, and cover for 15 to 20 minutes or until they're well hydrated. And while we wait for the peppers to hydrate and cool down, we're going to continue with the cooking process of the meat. Depending on how much meat you're preparing, the first part of the cooking process can take anywhere from 1 hour to an hour and a half. The 2 cups of water we added may not seem like very much, but once the meat begins to cook, it's going to release a lot of its juices. And it's going to continue to boil in the water that we used and the juices that it releases. It may seem like a long time, but the boiling process is very important because that's what's going to make your meat nice and tender. The meat has been cooking for about 45 minutes. At this point, we're going to fish out the onion and we're going to set it aside to use for the sauce. At this point, I already started to prepare my salsas because we're going to use this meat to prepare some delicious tacos. Now that the peppers are nice and hydrated, transfer all the ingredients from the pan to the blender, including the broth. And the onion that we pulled out, we're also going to add it to the blender and the vinegar. We're going to blend these ingredients for a good 2 to 3 minutes or until it has a smooth consistency. With the peppers that we used, this salsa is going to come out a little bit thick. So if you need to add more liquid to help blend the ingredients, you can definitely do so. At this point, the meat has been cooking for a little bit over an hour. As you can see, we still have a lot of the broth. So we're going to continue to cook the meat until most of the broth has simmered down. Once all of the broth has simmered down and all you have left is the fat that rendered from the meat, depending on how much fat rendered from the meat, you can add more manteca, or you can use the same fat that rendered from the meat and continue to fry the meat for another 15 to 20 minutes. At this point, I'm also going to add in the Mexican oregano and the grinded spices. And I'm also going to add a little bit of water to the mortar to get all those delicious spices that are stuck to the bowl. Mix in the seasonings and fry the meat for an additional 15 to 20 minutes or until it's slightly crispy. Then we're going to mix in the sauce from the blender. No need to strain it, just add it directly into the pan and mix it in with the meat. And cook for an additional 15 to 20 minutes or until it's slightly crispy. You can enjoy it just like this, or if your pieces are too big, using your spoon, break down the meat until it has the consistency that you prefer. Enjoy this delicious meat in tacos, burritos, quesadillas, gorditas, or anything else that you wish to enjoy this delicious recipe with. Well, mi linda familia, this is the end of this recipe and video. If you like this recipe, make sure to hit that like button so we can continue to share more recipes like this one. And if you try it at home, leave a comment and let us know what you think. Thank you so much for watching and join us in our next video for another delicious recipe.